Has the government overplayed its hand in the Vodafone case? It has yesterday bought a 49% stake in India's third largest telecom services provider company. Is it a never before land? This is something that we would want to ask in this episode of On Point. But before we do so, always remember that in these journeys that I take with you as a maverick observer of the Indian economy, I like it if you can hear, listen to what I am saying, and the best way to do it is to press the bell icon that comes with these YouTube videos. Do so and it will be fun for both of us. And now over to our story. A few years ago, when I started the series of On Point, my first episode was on the Vodafone. And there, as this episode would recollect to you, I had predicted that at some stage, Vodafone will be somewhat taken over by the government. In other words, Vodafone will not be allowed to die. Yesterday's decision, coming on top of already the 33% the government had taken in Vodafone, now going up to 49%, makes it very clear what the government wants. It wants a 3-horse race in the telecom service provider, Reliance Jio, Airtel and Vodafone. So essentially that means that this company is going to stay, and that is going to be the lay of the land. Is this decision, however, so surprising? Well, it isn't so surprising if you take one more famous case the government had done. This was what is known as the SUTI, the Specified Undertaking of UTI. Remember, till 2000, and that's a long way off, 24 years ago, the government used to hold through the erstwhile UTI, the Unit Trust of India, all the equity stakes of major companies which UTI used to hold as a legacy. What were these companies? This was ITC, there was RIL, there was several other companies. What has happened with them? Well, what has happened is this company, the Specified Undertaking of UTI, has actually earned a very decent profit for the government of India. So essentially there is a precedent of government of India holding equity stake in private companies for whatever the reasons. Essentially it has been a distress at the time when government has started holding those and has earned profit in the process. So Vodafone, first of all, is not never before land. It has come with an experience that is there. So this is a huge policy change. Private equity, but government run. For decades, the government of India has wanted to hold a sovereign wealth fund. The first question was, of course, that where would the money come from? But an equally powerful problem was, what will be the governance model? There have been countries on our east like Malaysia, on our west like Abu Dhabi and the Saudi Arabia, which have sovereign wealth funds. Governance model is something that's difficult, and India government hasn't been able to think about those clearly. Globally, however, there are precedents for this. Look at TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. It's essentially a government-run company. Look at Starlink today in USA. It is becoming a government-run company. So, globally, the paradigm of government-run versus private-run in strategic sectors is actually changing. A couple of years ago, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had also said that we would keep some strategic companies as government-run and let the rest go. That policy has not really been worked out. It's a good time now to think of that policy. As an economist, I would always say government should not run companies. But the technological changes happening in the world is bringing governments across countries to invest and manage critical companies which the government thinks are necessary for national interest. These have got significance. So, will this produce a good result? In the case of Vodafone, we shall have to see. What is an important thing is that when Vodafone remains a 49% government-run company, the IAS will also have to change the way it understands how company management is run. For instance, among the IAS, we do not accept that specialists are needed. That position will have to change, and that actually is going to be a very important change. Unlike other companies, how the IAS behaves running a government company like Vodafone, yet keeping a hands-off approach. Another change will have to be in the role of the regulators, my favorite area. The Telecom Regulatory Authority of India will now be determining between two government-run companies and two privately run companies. A BSNL, which is essentially a government's waste company in the telecom sector. It has, you know why I call it waste? Because it has got all those bits and pieces of spectrum which nobody wants, sort of tossed into the waste basket. It has got accordingly about 1.26 trillion rupees of assets. Those assets, just like in a garbage bag, doesn't really count for much. But Vodafone is a different thing. It's a good company, it's running well, and it has got the capacity to give a run for the money to Airtel and Jio. So, as I said, the regulator will have to be careful about how it envisages its role. The other question is, was this money wasted? Well, if you say, and I just said, the BSNL money that has been given was a major waste. So, Vodafone definitely, where the government is actually not wasting money, the government has simply converted the dues that was unpaid by Vodafone into equity. And lastly, why was this necessary? Remember, the retrospective tax which former Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee had imposed was hitting Vodafone. That was the first company that was going to be hit, and it did hit them. It's interesting that an equally significant government decision this week is also about Vodafone. So, Vodafone and the government, very interesting in terms of the economic policy connect. First, clearing a bad decision, this time actually doing a good decision. So, was this the government's way of saying sorry for a mistake that was there in the AGR, the adjusted gross revenue? I will not go into that, that's another technical issue. But the point about Vodafone's problem is that Vodafone had to pay dues on calculation of its income, which, while the Supreme Court went by the spirit of the law, was actually going to be very harsh. So, AGR dues, the retrospective tax that was imposed on Vodafone, is the government saying sorry for what it brought on this company? Well, I leave you to judge it, and that's all from this edition of On Point. For a detailed description of what we discussed here, please visit my Substack. The link is in the description below. Thank you.